A human warned the aliens to release the alien princess, but they ignored him. The neon-lit streets of New Vex's red light district pulsed with their usual evening energy. Maddox Stone, Earth's most famous mercenary, leaned against the grimy wall of the Crimson Nebula bar, his worn combat armor a stark contrast to the flashy attire of the alien patrons. His reputation preceded him. He was known as the Reaper for his unparalleled combat skills. The mission appeared simple: rescue Princess Latana, daughter of King Thorin, from the Emerald Dominion.
The princess had been abducted by the notorious Black Visor Gang, a group of cybernetically enhanced thugs recognizable by their elongated helmets with glowing orange visors. The bounty was 3 million credits up front, with another 5 million upon completion, as King Thorin had stated, his green skin shimmering in the holographic display between them, to bring her back unharmed. Maddox took a long drag from his cigarette, observing the Black Visor Gang's hideout across the street. Intelligence indicated they were holding the princess in their fortified compound, planning to auction her off to the highest bidder. The thought ignited a fire within him. Human mercenaries had a code, and trafficking was not part of it. He straightened, checking his modified plasma rifle one last time. The weapon hummed with barely contained energy, showcasing human engineering superiority. Even in this era of advanced alien technology, nothing quite matched the reliability and impact of human-made weapons. "Time to crash their party," he muttered, activating his tactical visor. The heads-up display revealed 15 heat signatures inside the compound. The princess's unique biological signature was unmistakable. She was held in the basement. Maddox approached the compound's main entrance, where 2 Black Visor guards stood watch, their orange visors gleaming ominously in the neon light. "This is your only warning," Maddox declared, his voice carrying the weight of countless successful missions. "Release the princess, and you all walk away alive. Refuse, and I'll show you why humans are the most feared mercenaries in the galaxy." The guards laughed, their synthesized voices grating through their helmet speakers. "One human against all of us? You must be insane," the taller one sneered. Maddox sighed. They never listened. They never learned. What followed was a spectacle of destruction that would be discussed in New Vex's underworld for years to come. Maddox moved like liquid lightning, his enhanced reflexes and natural human adaptability making him nearly impossible to track. The first 2 guards fell before they could even raise their weapons. He breached the compound's entrance with a shaped charge, the explosion precisely calculated to disable rather than kill. Another example of human precision. Inside, chaos erupted as Black Visor members scrambled to respond. "Last chance!" Maddox called out, his voice echoing through the compound. "The princess walks free, or this gets really ugly." The response came in the form of plasma bolts streaking through the smoke-filled air. Maddox rolled behind a pillar, a grim smile playing on his lips. "Have it your way." The next few minutes showcased a masterclass in human combat efficiency. Maddox flowed through the compound like a force of nature, each movement precise and lethal. The Black Visor's advanced armor proved useless against his tactical genius and superior marksmanship. "What the hell is he?" one of them screamed before a stun round silenced him. "Just a human who gave you a fair warning," Maddox muttered, stepping over the unconscious body. He reached the basement level, dispatching 3 more guards with practiced ease. The door to the holding cell was reinforced. Still impressive by most standards, but nothing special for someone trained in human military tactics. Inside, Princess Latana sat bound with coarse beige ropes, her green skin bruised but her spirit unbroken. Her revealing black outfit, resembling a mini bikini, was torn and dirty, but her eyes blazed with defiance. "Your father sent me," Maddox said quickly, cutting her bonds. "Let's get you out of here." "Behind you!" she shouted. Maddox spun, catching the Black Visor leader's blade inches from his throat. The alien was massive, his armor more elaborate than his subordinates. "You should have listened to my warning," Maddox said, before executing a perfect counter that sent the leader crashing into the wall. The fight was brief but brutal, ending with the leader unconscious and Maddox barely winded. As they emerged from the compound, Princess Latana looked at her rescuer with newfound respect. "I've never seen anyone fight like that," she admitted, her long black hair flowing in the neon-lit breeze. Maddox shrugged. "Just doing my job, Princess. Though I did warn them." The journey back to the Emerald Dominion's capital would take 3 days through contested space. Maddox piloted their sleek transport vessel, while Princess Latana rested in the cabin behind the cockpit. He'd chosen a smaller ship for its maneuverability and stealth capabilities,
a decision that proved wise when the ship's sensors detected multiple vessels on an intercept course.
"We've got company," Maddox called out, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls.
"Looks like the Black Visors have some powerful friends." Latana emerged from the cabin, having changed into a more practical but still form-fitting green flight suit. "The Crimson Syndicate," she said, examining the tactical display. "They've been trying to gain influence in our sector for years."
Maddox raised an eyebrow.
"And now they're using your kidnapping as leverage?" "Among other things," she replied, settling into the co-pilot seat. Her proximity sent an unexpected wave of warmth through him.
"They've been pressuring my father for mining rights on our outer colonies. The pursuing ships were gaining, their engines leaving distinctive red trails in the void."
Maddox initiated evasive maneuvers, the ship responding to his commands with characteristic human precision.
"You're an exceptional pilot," Latana observed, her eyes reflecting the starlight.
"I've never seen anyone handle a ship like this."
Maddox allowed himself a small smile.
"Human reflexes. We might not be the strongest or longest-lived species in the galaxy, but we've got our advantages." A warning klaxon blared as the lead pursuit vessel opened fire. Maddox rolled their ship through a series of complex maneuvers, the enemy's plasma bolts harmlessly dissipating in their wake. "Hold on," he warned, before diving into the debris field of an ancient battle. The wreckage of capital ships provided perfect cover, though navigating through it required split-second timing and nerves of steel. Latana gripped her seat but showed no fear. Most pilots wouldn't dare enter a debris field at this speed.
"Most pilots are human," Maddox replied with a wink.
The casual gesture surprised him. He usually maintained strict professionalism during missions. Something about the princess was affecting his usual composure. Patience. They emerged from the debris field to find two syndicate ships waiting. Maddox cursed under his breath. They'd been herded into a trap. The ship rocked as tractor beams locked on.
"Any ideas?" Latana asked, her voice steady despite the situation.
Maddox grinned.
"Ever heard of the Kessel Gambit? The maneuver that's supposed to be suicide? That's the one.
Humans invented it." He began powering up the engines in a specific sequence. "We're about to show these syndicate boys why you don't mess with human ingenuity." What followed was a masterclass in impossible piloting. Maddox used the tractor beam's own energy against them, building up potential energy before releasing it in a controlled explosion that sent their ship spinning between the two syndicate vessels. The maneuver forced the enemies to break their tractor lock or risk colliding with each other. "Impossible," Latana breathed, watching the syndicate ships careened away. That was magnificent. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Maddox felt his pulse quicken, and not from the adrenaline of combat. The princess's admiration was evident, but there was something more in her gaze. A hunger that matched his own growing attraction. "We should find somewhere to lay low," he said, breaking the moment before it became too intense. "They'll be back with reinforcements." Latana nodded, though her eyes lingered on him. "There's a trading outpost in the Nexus cluster. We can resupply and contact my father." The next few hours passed in comfortable silence, broken only by occasional conversation. Maddox found himself increasingly aware of Latana's presence. The graceful way she moved, the musical quality of her laugh when he made a dry observation about space travel. They docked at the trading outpost as the local star was setting, casting everything in a purple twilight. The station was a hodgepodge of different architectural styles, reflecting its diverse population.
"We'll need to be careful," Maddox said as they disembarked.
"This place is neutral territory, but the Syndicate probably has eyes here." "Then we'll have to blend in," Latana replied with a mischievous smile. She took his arm, pressing close. "We'll pose as a couple on holiday."
"No one looks twice at lovers."
Maddox felt his body respond to her touch, even as his professional instincts warned him about maintaining boundaries.
"Princess Latana," she corrected. "And don't worry, Maddox. This isn't just for cover." She reached up, tracing a finger along his jaw. "I've never met anyone like you. Human men have quite the reputation in the galaxy, you know." "Is that so?" He caught her hand, meaning to pull it away, but instead found himself holding it. "And what reputation is that?" "Brave, skilled." Her green skin flushed darker as she leaned closer. "Passionate." A group of traders walked past, and Maddox used the moment to create some distance, though every fiber of his being protested. "We should find lodging somewhere defensible." Latana's disappointed look was tempered by understanding. Always the professional. But you can't deny there's something between us. I'm here to protect you, he reminded her, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. And you're doing an excellent job, she said, her voice dropping to a sultry whisper. But who says that's all you have to do? Before Maddox could respond, movement caught his eye. A figure in distinctive crimson armor was speaking into a communicator while watching them. We've got trouble. Time to move. They hurried through the crowded marketplace, Maddox's combat instincts on high alert. More syndicate operatives were emerging from the crowds, trying to cut off their escape routes. Trust me, he asked Latana. Completely, she replied without hesitation. And Maddox pulled her into a side alley, then through a series of maintenance corridors he'd memorized from the station's public schematics during their approach. Human pattern recognition and spatial awareness, more traits that made his species exceptional mercenaries. They emerged near the station's residential sector, but Maddox knew they couldn't stay. The syndicate would lock down the station soon. There's a maintenance airlock ahead, he said. We can spacewalk to the secondary docking ring, where I have a backup ship ready. Latana's eyes widened with admiration. You always have a contingency plan, don't you? It's why I'm still alive. He checked their surroundings before continuing, and why I can't let myself get distracted, no matter how tempting the distraction might be. Can't or won't? Latana challenged, her eyes sparkling with both mischief and genuine affection. Before Maddox could answer, plasma fire erupted from both ends of the corridor. The syndicate had found them. He pulled Latana behind a structural beam, returning fire with precise shots that dropped 2 attackers. We need to move, he said, but Latana grabbed his arm first. She pulled him into a kiss that sent electricity through his entire body. When she pulled back, her eyes were fierce. In case we don't get another chance, Maddox felt his professional resolve crumbling. We will, he promised. But first, let's show these syndicate thugs why you don't corner a human mercenary and his princess. The emergency airlock hissed open to the void of space. Maddox and Latana, secured in their environmental suits, launched themselves into the star-studded darkness. Behind them, the trading station's alarms blared silently in the vacuum as Crimson Syndicate forces searched in vain. The backup ship is docked at Junction 17. Maddox's voice crackled through the comms. Stay close. They maneuvered through the maze of external station architecture, their magnetic boots allowing controlled movement across the hull. Latana matched his pace perfectly, her natural grace evident even in zero gravity. You're good at this, Maddox observed, impressed by her adaptability. Royal training includes zero-grag operations, she replied, a smile in her voice, though I admit none of my instructors were quite as engaging as you. Before Maddox could respond, plasma fire erupted from a maintenance hatch. The syndicate had predicted their route. Maddox pulled Latana behind a communications array, returning fire with his suit's built-in defense system. Time for Plan B, he announced, detaching their magnetic tethers. Hold on tight. Using his suit's thrusters, Maddox launched them away from the station and into the nearby asteroid field. The pursuing syndicate operatives hesitated. Few were brave enough to enter that chaotic space without a ship. Are all humans this daring? Latana asked, her arms wrapped tightly around him as they navigated between massive rocks. Only the successful ones, he replied, guiding them toward a particular asteroid. Backup ship is hidden in a mining cavity. We just need to reach it before our suit oxygen runs low. They reached the asteroid, finding the concealed entrance to an abandoned mining operation. Inside the pressurized cavity, they removed their helmets, and Latana immediately pulled Maddox into another passionate kiss. That's for the rescue, she whispered against his lips. Again, the backup vessel was smaller than their previous ship, barely more than a long-range shuttle. Its cramped cockpit forced them to sit close together as Maddox powered up the engines. They'll be waiting for us to leave, Latana said, studying the tactical display. Then, we'll give them a show they'll never forget. Maddox piloted the ship deeper into the asteroid field, using the natural cover to mask their energy signature. The syndicate vessels followed cautiously, spreading out to cut off escape routes. You're enjoying this, Latana observed, noticing his slight smile. Maybe a little, he admitted. There's something pure about outmaneuvering an enemy. No politics, no complicated motivations,
just skill against skill.
"And what about us?" she asked softly.
Is that complicated? Sho. Maddox's hands stilled on the controls for a moment. It should be. You're a princess. I'm a mercenary. And yet, she leaned closer, her presence intoxicating. Nothing about this feels wrong. A warning alarm interrupted the moment. 3 syndicate ships had detected them, opening fire with heavy weapons. Maddox threw their ship into a series of evasive maneuvers. Using the asteroids as both shield and weapon, he timed their movement perfectly, causing 2 pursuers to collide while avoiding their debris.
"Magnificent!"
Latana breathed, watching him work. You make the impossible look easy. That's humanity's gift, Maddox replied, threading their ship through an impossibly narrow gap between rocks. We see limitations as challenges. The last pursuing ship chose that moment to launch a barrage of missiles. Maddox rolled their ship through a series of defensive maneuvers, while Latana's targeting systems picked off the projectiles one by one. We need to get you somewhere safe, Maddox said, his protective instincts intensifying with the knowledge of her condition. The Emerald Dominion. No, Latana interrupted. Not yet. The Syndicate has spies in my father's court. We need a secure location until we can determine who to trust. Maddox nodded, already calculating options. I know a place, an old mining colony in the Obsidian Belt. Remote, self-sufficient, run by ex-mercenaries who owe me favors.
They broke free of the asteroid field, their remaining pursuer falling behind as Maddox executed a series of random jumps to throw off any tracking. Between jumps, Latana moved closer, taking his hand and placing it on her abdomen. "Can you believe it?" she whispered.
A child of 2 worlds. Your strength, your adaptability, your grace, your wisdom. Quote, Maddox added, allowing himself to imagine their future for the first time. The Syndicate won't stop hunting us.
Then they'll learn what happens when they threaten human family.
Latana's confidence in him was absolute. You warned those first captors, and they didn't listen. The Syndicate is making the same mistake. The mining colony appeared on their sensors. A sprawling complex built into a massive asteroid. Maddox transmitted authentication codes, and they were quickly granted clearance to land in a secure hangar. The colony leader, a grizzled ex-mercenary named Drake, met them at the landing pad. His cybernetic eye scanned them both before he broke into a knowing grin. Stone, you old space dog, he greeted. Finally met someone who could keep up with you, E.H.
Drake, we need sanctuary, Maddox explained, and medical facilities.
Drake's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Latana. Congratulations are in order, I see. First human emerald hybrid I'll have the pleasure of helping bring into the universe. Inside the colony's medical bay, advanced scanning equipment confirmed what Latana had sensed. The child was developing rapidly, benefiting from both species' accelerated healing factors. Remarkable, the colony's chief medical officer marveled. The genetic combination is creating something entirely new. This child will have capabilities we can only imagine. Latana squeezed Maddox's hand as they watched the holographic display of their developing child. Our little miracle. The Syndicate will want to study the child, Maddox said grimly. We've given them even more reason to hunt us. Let them try, Drake interrupted from the doorway. This colony was built to withstand armies, and every merc here owes you their life twice over, Stone. We protect our own. Over the next few weeks, they settled into life in the colony. Maddox trained with the security forces, implementing new defensive protocols, while Latana's diplomatic skills helped smooth over the colony's sometimes rough social dynamics. Their quarters overlooked the colony's hydroponics garden, providing a sense of peace despite their circumstances. One evening, as they watched the artificial sunset through the dome, Latana noticed Maddox's thoughtful expression. Credit for your thoughts? She asked, curling against him. Thinking about warnings, he replied. How this all started because some thugs wouldn't listen when I told them to let you go. Quote. And now? Now I'm thinking about all the warnings we'll give anyone who threatens our family. Maddox's eyes darkened with determination. Time to prepare for the inevitable, Latana said, her warrior spirit matching his own as they prepared for battle. Maddox realized that every step of their journey, from that first rescue to this moment, had been leading to something greater than either of them could have imagined. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of both their species. The mining colony's command center hummed with activity as Maddox coordinated their defense. The Syndicate fleet had deployed in a standard attack formation. Clearly, they weren't expecting serious resistance from what they assumed was a simple mining operation. First mistake, Drake commented, watching the tactical display. They don't know they're facing the best mercenary strategists in the galaxy. Latana stood beside Maddox, her diplomatic training proving invaluable as she analyzed enemy communications. Their command structure is fractured. Several captains are questioning this attack. They didn't sign up for a full-scale war. Maddox grinned. Then let's give them something to really worry about. He activated the colony-wide communication. All units, execute Protocol Omega. Show them why humanity wrote the book on asymmetric warfare. The colony's outer layers suddenly split apart, revealing state-of-the-art weapon systems hidden beneath the mundane mining equipment. Years of preparation and paranoia had turned the asteroid into a fortress. First wave engage, Maddox commanded. Squadrons of fighter craft, piloted by veteran mercenaries, launched from concealed hangars. Their attack patterns were unlike anything the Syndicate had encountered. Human unpredictability at its finest. Multiple ships are breaking formation, Latana reported, her hand resting protectively over her growing abdomen. Their commanders are arguing over tactical priorities. Time to add to their confusion. Maddox activated a special frequency. Attention Syndicate vessels. This is Maddox Stone. I warned your ground forces once about threatening what's mine. They didn't listen. This is your only warning. Withdraw now or face the consequences. Several Syndicate ships immediately began powering down weapons. Maddox's reputation wasn't just for show. Many of these captains had heard stories of what happened to those who ignored his warnings. Suddenly, new contacts appeared on their sensors. A massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace behind the Syndicate forces. The Emerald Dominion Royal Fleet! Latana exclaimed, recognizing the energy signatures. But how? Quote, the answer came in the form of a transmission from the lead vessel. King Thorin's holographic image appeared. His expression, a mixture of concern and pride. Did you think I wouldn't notice my daughter's unique biosignature? He asked. Or that I wouldn't protect my future grandchild? Latana's eyes filled with tears. Father! You know, my dear, I've known since your first night together. Our species can sense such things across great distances, especially between family members. He smiled warmly at Maddox. I must admit, when I hired you to rescue my daughter, I didn't expect you to become family. But I've learned that humans have a way of exceeding expectations. The Syndicate fleet found itself caught between the heavily armed mining colony and the Royal Fleet. Several ships immediately surrendered, while others attempted to flee. Your Majesty, Maddox addressed his unexpected father-in-law, with your permission, I'd like to ensure these criminals never threaten our family again. Permission granted, son. The king's use of the familiar term sent warmth through Maddox's chest. Show them why the galaxy fears human ingenuity. What followed was a masterclass in tactical warfare. Maddox coordinated the colony's defenses with the Royal Fleet, using strategies that seemed to defy conventional space combat logic. Ships appeared to be in multiple places at once, weapons fired from impossible angles, and the Syndicate's carefully planned attack dissolved into chaos. Remarkable, King Thorin observed. I've never seen such unconventional tactics. Humans excel at thinking outside standard parameters, Latana explained proudly. It's one of the many reasons I love him. The battle reached its climax when Maddox sprung his final trap. Hidden antimatter mines disguised as debris activated in sequence, creating a cascade of explosions that disabled the remaining hostile ships without destroying them. Status report, Maddox called out. 80% of enemy vessels have surrendered, Drake reported. The rest are disabled or retreating. No casualties on our side. Minimal damage to the colony's infrastructure. King Thorin nodded approvingly. Most impressive. Now perhaps we can discuss more pleasant matters, like my grandchild's future. Hours later, after the prisoners were secured and repair crews dispatched, Maddox and Latana stood in their quarters, watching the Royal Fleet's ships through their viewport. Your father had granted us time to rest before formal discussions would begin. I can't believe he knew all along, Latana mused, leaning back against Maddox's chest, and approved. Your father's a wise man, Maddox replied, his hands caressing her swollen abdomen. He sees the bigger picture. Our child represents something unprecedented. A bridge between species, combining the best of both worlds. Speaking of unprecedented, Latana turned in his arms, her eyes gleaming with familiar desire. The doctor said intimate relations are not only safe, but beneficial during pregnancy. Maddox raised an eyebrow. Even after all this excitement? Especially after. She pressed closer, her skin flushing darker with arousal. Watching you command that battle was incredibly attractive. Humans aren't just physically compatible with us. Your minds, your adaptability, your sheer audacity, it's intoxicating. Their passionate embrace was interrupted by a gentle kick from within Latana's abdomen. They both laughed, the joy of their growing family overwhelming any remaining tension from the battle.
Our little warrior is already showing fighting spirit, Maddox observed.
Just like his father, Latana agreed. Though hopefully he'll also learn when to listen to warnings, unlike those who started this whole adventure. Maddox smiled, remembering the path that led them here. Exactly. Latana's expression turned serious. You know, on my world, there's an ancient saying, the greatest victories come from battles never fought. But sometimes, Maddox finished, sometimes they come from battles that teach unforgettable lessons, like warning a group of kidnappers to release a certain princess, and when they didn't listen, they learned why humans have such a fearsome reputation. He kissed her tenderly. Though I never expected their mistake would lead to all this. Regrets? She asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Never, he replied, pulling her closer.
Some warnings are meant to be ignored. How else would the universe push us toward our destiny?
6 months after the battle with the Syndicate, the Royal Medical Facility within the Emerald Dominion's capital buzzed with anticipation. Maddox paced outside the delivery room, his legendary composure eroded by the sounds of his wife's labor. King Thorin placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder.
Relax, son.
Emeraldian women are incredibly resilient during childbirth, and Latana has the strength of both our peoples within her.
Now, the medical staff had been amazed by the pregnancy's progressions.
The hybrid child developed at an accelerated rate, combining human adaptability with emerald regenerative capabilities. Every scan revealed new surprises, enhanced neural pathways, unprecedented cellular structures, and energy readings that defied conventional medical knowledge. Your Majesty, Maddox began, but Thorin cut him off. Father, please, you've more than earned the right. The king's eyes twinkled. Not many men can say they single-handedly rescued a princess, defeated a criminal syndicate, and helped to forge a new chapter in interspecies relations.
A cry from within the delivery room drew their attention. The door slid open, and the chief medical officer emerged, her green skin flushed with excitement.
Congratulations, she announced.
You have a healthy son, and you need to see this.
Maddox rushed inside to find Latana cradling their newborn. The child's skin was a fascinating blend of human and emerald tones. Patches of green mixed with fair human coloring in a marble-like pattern. But most striking were his eyes. They seemed to shift color with each blend, displaying an array of hues that shouldn't have been possible. He's perfect, Latana whispered as Maddox approached. Come meet your son, my brave mercenary. As Maddox took the child in his arms, something extraordinary happened. The baby's skin began to shift, matching the tone of Maddox's arms where they touched. The medical staff gasped in amazement. Adaptive camouflage, the chief medical officer breathed. Like nothing we've ever seen. He's literally combining traits from both species at will. Alexander, Latana said softly, after the ancient human warrior. You told me about the one who united different peoples under a single banner. Maddox smiled, remembering their late-night conversations about Earth's history. Alexander's stone has a nice ring to it. The baby gurgled, his skin rippling with patterns that seemed to respond to his parents' voices. The medical sensors in the room began registering unusual energy signatures. Fascinating, the medical officer murmured, studying her readings. He appears to be processing and adapting to stimuli at an unprecedented rate, a combination of human neuroplasticity and emerald energy manipulation. Quote. King Thorin stepped closer, beaming with grandfatherly pride. He represents everything we hoped for, the perfect bridge between our peoples, a symbol of unity and evolution. Young Alexander chose that moment to demonstrate another unique ability, creating a small field of bioluminescence around himself that bathed his parents in a warm, comforting glow. He's already protecting his family, Latana observed proudly, just like his father.
Maddox felt an overwhelming surge of love for both his wife and son.
The journey that had brought them here, from that first rescue to this moment, seemed almost destined in retrospect. Later that evening, in their private royal quarters, Maddox and Latana watched their son sleeping in his specially designed crib. The medical staff had insisted on monitoring his vital signs, amazed by how quickly he was developing.
"Remember when you first warned those kidnappers?"
Latana mused, snuggling against her husband. Who could have imagined their stupidity would lead to this miracle? Maddox chuckled softly. The universe works in mysterious ways, though I have to admit becoming a father to the galaxy's first human-emerald hybrid wasn't in my mission parameters. Complaining? She turned to face him, her eyes sparkling with the same passion that had first drawn them together. Never! He pulled her closer, their bodies fitting together perfectly, though I do wonder what other surprises our little warrior has in store for us. As if in response, Alexander's skin began glowing softly in his sleep, creating patterns that danced across the ceiling. The sight was mesmerizing, a physical manifestation of the love between two species. The medical team wants to run more tests tomorrow, Latana said. They're particularly interested in his adaptive abilities. Apparently, he's already showing signs of accelerated healing and enhanced cognitive development, as long as they remember he's our son, not a science experiment.
Maddox's protective instincts flared.
Don't worry, she soothed. Father has made it clear Alexander's well-being comes first. Any research will be strictly non-invasive and only with our approval. Clear. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime. The room's holographic display activated, showing Drake's familiar face.
"Sorry to interrupt the family time," the old mercenary said, "but I thought you'd want to know word of Alexander's birth is spreading. We're getting reports of other human-alien couples coming forward, inspired by your story." Maddox and Latana shared a meaningful look. Their love hadn't just created a child. It had sparked a movement, challenging old prejudices and opening new possibilities. "Let them come," Latana declared. "It's time the galaxy understood that love knows no species barriers." "Though they might want to listen to warnings more carefully than your original captors did," Maddox added with a smirk. "Oh?" Latana raised an eyebrow playfully. "And what warning would you give now?" "Simple." He gazed at their miraculous son, then back at his beautiful wife. "Never underestimate the power of human determination, especially when it comes to protecting those we love." Alexander stirred in his sleep, his skin shifting to match the colors of the nebula visible through their window. In that moment, Maddox knew that every challenge they'd faced, every battle they'd won, had been leading to this, a future where humanity's greatest strength wasn't its fighting prowess or tactical genius, but its capacity for love that transcended all boundaries.